Spider-Man came out in 2002 and is directed by Sam Raimi and stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, Willem Dafoe, and James Franco, and I'm very excited to give you guys my review for this movie. If you've seen it, be sure to let me know what you thought about it. As well, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into this review. After being bitten by a genetically modified spider, a shy teenager gains spider-like abilities that he uses to fight injustice as a masked superhero and face a vengeful enemy. So I'm very excited to start talking about this movie, and I'm going to go through all the live-action Spider-Man movies from Spider-Man to Spider-Man No Way Home. At some point I'll get into reviewing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but for now I'm just doing the live-action movies. And I'm so excited to start with this because Spider-Man and the Sam Raimi trilogy means a lot to me. I have a lot of nostalgia for the trilogy, and this movie was the first superhero comic book movie I ever saw. So it means a lot to me. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I just rewatched it, and this movie just made me so happy watching it. It just, I guess, reminded me of my childhood, and some stuff of this movie is dated, but overall I thought it was still a very good movie. I really enjoyed the origin story in this. It was sort of kind of iconic for the origin story. A lot of the other origin stories, I think, take a lot of influence from this one, and I thought it was great. Tobey Maguire, for me, is my Spider-Man. He's a Spider-Man I grew up with, and I love him in the role. I think he's great as Peter Parker. I really appreciate his sort of quiet performance as Peter Parker, if that makes sense. He's sort of like a quiet character, you know, he's shy and nerdy, and he pulls it off very well. Like, I buy that this is a character that sort of gets overlooked a lot. People just don't notice him all that much, or they'll pick on him, and I can appreciate that. And for me, like, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, and this is part of the reason, because it was the first superhero movie I saw. But even parts of it, specifically with this Spider-Man, with Tobey's performance, I could kind of relate to that when I was going through middle school, high school. Not a popular person. I was very quiet and shy, and somebody who just wasn't noticed like that. So I could sort of relate to that a bit more now. So I really like that, and I think he was great as Peter Parker, and I really enjoy him as Spider-Man. Like, whenever I think of Spider-Man, I think of him because that's what I saw when I was younger. And yeah, for me, I thought it was great. I loved how they set up him becoming Spider-Man, getting bit by that spider. I loved his reaction when he first sort of found some of the changes that were happening to him, and sort of how human his character was, in a way, if that makes sense, before he really becomes Spider-Man but has the powers. Like, he's sort of using it to try and become more known to MJ, played by Kirsten Dunst. He's trying to get her attention by getting a car, and he's going to use his abilities to fight this guy to win $3,000 to get a car, stuff like that. So I kind of like that layer of this movie too. And then you get the classic moment with Uncle Ben where he says, "With great power comes great responsibility," a theme that runs through, I think, all the Spider-Man movies, or most of them anyway. So that was great and very iconic. And you get Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, and I thought he was fantastic in this role. I know not everybody loves his costume, but again, for me, that's what I grew up with, so I like the costume, but that's just me. But his performance was fantastic, especially the scene with the mirror where it's just Willem Dafoe, but he's going back and forth between being Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin. I thought it was a great scene, and his performance was fantastic. I enjoyed the scenes with him and Spider-Man. The fight scene, especially in the final act, it could get quite gritty and brutal in that final fight scene, and I really liked it. I thought it was great. And they definitely had stuff that you don't get in the newer Spider-Man movies, where you really like see Spider-Man get beat up. You see it a bit, I guess, in No Way Home, but you know, his costume's all torn up, there's more blood. So I liked that a lot. And like I said, I enjoyed their interactions together whenever they were on screen. I thought that was great. You could understand why Norman Osborn was doing what he was doing. So that was good as well. J.K. Simmons plays J. Jonah Jameson in this movie, and I thought that was perfect casting. I thought he was great in the role. Could be really funny at times. Absolutely loved him in this movie, and in all the movies in this trilogy, he was great. Really enjoyed that. And yeah, I just really like this origin story. Like, it feels familiar, I think, because we've gotten so many origin stories since then, but it feels classic, and it feels more straight to the point, because sometimes now I feel like they're trying to do a lot in their origin stories to not make them like a very familiar generic origin story, but this one didn't have to worry about that, and I think it sort of works for the better, if that makes sense. It's just simple, straightforward, filled with iconic stuff. And I love Peter's journey of, you know, just being Peter Parker and then becoming Spider-Man and learning to be Spider-Man, and there's even more of that in Spider-Man 2, I find. And so I really enjoyed that a lot. And as for issues that I have with this movie, I don't really have a lot. Yeah, some of the CGI is dated for sure, but there are still some parts that look really good compared to what you get now, where these people actually look like they're on location or on a real set in their costumes, whereas in some of these newer movies they just look like they're CGI, like it's obvious they're in like a motion capture suit and not in an actual costume, whereas this, they're in a costume, and I really miss that in some of these newer comic book movies. So I just really like that. And yeah, some of the CGI is dated. Some of the lines in this are like, okay, it's kind of a goofy line, sure, and there is some campiness to this movie, but I find for me the campiness sort of has added to the charm for me. Sometimes campiness does that to movies over time, sometimes it doesn't. For this one, I think it kind of works. It just adds to charm for this movie, and it just kind of makes it stand out a bit, because it's like a superhero movie that you don't get anymore, and I kind of miss that. I miss the days of getting more superhero movies that aren't connected to larger cinematic universes where you get other superheroes in your movies. I kind of miss that. So I really enjoyed this movie, and honestly I really love this movie. Like I said, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie, so that adds sort of my enjoyment for this one and this whole trilogy, having that nostalgia, because I grew up with these movies. But rewatching it, I'm like, I still really enjoy it, and I still think it's a very fun comic book movie. And yeah, I love it. I think it's a great movie. For me, I'm gonna give Spider-Man a 90%. So guys, thank you for watching my review. Those are my thoughts on Spider-Man. If you've seen it, be sure to let me know what you thought about it. As well, be sure to stay tuned for some more reviews coming soon. As I said, I'm going to be going through all the live-action Spider-Man movies, so stay tuned for those reviews. And until my next video, take care, everybody.